Hello, everybody, and welcome to another SIG Windows meetup. Thank you all for attending. It's the 20th of August, and as always, please adhere to the Kubernetes and CNCF code of conduct since this is a recorded meeting. I'm still catching up personally on a few things from the community. Patrick had sent me quite a few things in the last couple of weeks, so I'm catching up. So we're just going to go through the agenda. There's a few items here that I wanted to bring up based on items that me and Patrick had discussed in the last couple of weeks, but we haven't had a chance to kind of disclose them to the general community. I'll start with those, and some of these will spill over to subsequent weeks as well, but just to kind of give you guys a heads up. The first one, there's 2 PRs that AWS team has pulled for 1.14 and 1.15. I linked them in the document and I put them under 827. Essentially, what we want to do is we want to have probably Deep talk to the AWS guys and see if the EBS support that they want to enable, if that's something that can be handled under the CSI work that Deep is spearheading. So I think that's going to be an important, another important support for storage that we can add. So just putting them here as a heads up, and if Deep has some time this week, he can look at it. Otherwise, we'll discuss it next week and see how we can move forward from there. The second item is a ticket that I guess Ben was the last one that commented around the MTD and some of the volume support in Windows misrepresenting the amount of storage. Do we know who's going to work on that, Ben? Is that Jingsu?
There's a PR already open for that one. I think there were just some comments about the implementation.
Okay, cool. So I'm assuming we'll fix it for 116 then, it looks like, right?
I think so.
Very nice, cool. That's a good catch. All right. So Deep, I guess we're pushing to you now, the CSI proxy SCSI APIs. I'm assuming that's yours, right?
Yeah, actually, that was opened by Jing. I think we followed up a little bit. So Jing, go ahead.
Oh, you can go ahead, actually. So I think we are just basically trying to define the APIs for CSI proxy be worked on, and that API should include to support SCSI, SMB, etc. And we want to have kind of cover. The API cannot cover all the cases, so we want to find for this stage the minimum sets of API we should support. And for SCSI case, I think there is a link I post there. That's the most basic ones. I think currently we should support. I think that list also just miss one API remove SCSI connection. Someone mentioned that, and just want to see, because I'm not expert on SCSI part, but we just want to make sure anyone has some concerns or feedback about that part.
Yeah, and just wanted to also add the context that, so basically the link you posted is also from Jean's repo, who posted the PR in CSI proxy as well. So yeah, so he's basically incorporating, I think Jean is also on the call, so you can just speak to it, Jean.
Yeah, as Dip said, that PR is really the minimal API we want for the CSI proxy for the alpha version. So reviews are welcome.
So one point we have is I think SCSI is quite complicated. So we just want to basically mirror what Windows API use exactly the same API as Windows. So we don't change anything.
Sorry, I'm not sure I get your question and your point. Hello?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure I understand your point to your question.
Oh, I was just saying we are just trying to mirror the Windows API for iSCSI.
Yes, that's correct. And so you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, or I'm not sure I understand.
No, I think it's sounds reasonable. It's reasonable for me. Yeah.
Okay, great.
And I think just for clarity, also, like this is the PR that I just shared in the screen, is the one that's adding the definitions in the CSI proxies API protobuf definitions. So I think there's been a few reviews, like a few folks already took a look, like Peter did. So Jing, if I think I pointed you to this as well, if you can take a look at some point.
Yes. Sure.
And I think this is what's going to end up in the proxy and will be kind of interfacing with the iSCSI bindings that shown.
And by the way, we are like Dave and I thinking to have a CSI Windows kind of working group, so we can work together. This is a big project, and to have regular meetings, I plan to set it up probably Tuesday, Friday, 30 minutes. And if anyone interested in joining this meeting, please let me know. I help you. I just want to help to set it up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to join that.
Yeah. So could you just send me your email on Slack?
Okay, sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, great. That'd be a good forum to kind of move this along. So, thanks, Jing.
Thank you.
All right, Dave, I guess you can continue on with your GMSA beta status since we got you on the mic.
Okay, sure. So basically, we were planning to take GMSA to beta in 1.16. That was kind of the target. So we have a couple of outstanding items. One is, let me start with the second one, in fact. This is the entry cleanup around GMSAs, GMSA cred specs. So Jean submitted that PR quite a while back. It's been under sort of review. I believe yesterday, Yuju probably took a look and assigned it to Lantau. So since it's an entry cleanup PR, the PR is entry, we kind of need to get it in before the code freeze. The earlier, the better. And the code freeze is kind of creeping up next week, I believe. So if anyone has any feedback, please take a look. Otherwise, I think I'll continue to ping Yuju or Lantau that she has assigned to.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, I was looking at that and I just assigned to Lantau in case that he has bandwidth to look at it first. But
Okay.
I don't think it's a cleanup PR, and I think it makes sense. I don't think there will be any problem getting it in by code freeze.
Awesome. Thanks a lot. Appreciate it. The other main thing that's remaining for the beta is getting the test infra up. So Jeremy and Jean has been working on the Windows testing PR. The idea there is to introduce this other extension that sets up the DC, the domain controller on one of the nodes. I think Jeremy is just cleaning it up, but it should soon be ready. And Adelina, if you have any cycles, please take a look and please post any comments if you have any concerns.
Yeah, we actually tested it in a job
Right.
to see if it deploys properly and if it works with our infra. No problems. So that's great. I've looked, but only while fugitively over the script in the extension. Nothing popped to my eye as a comment, but I will. I promise tomorrow I'll look thoroughly and leave any comment if there is one. And short as to the test, we said last week that we're going to discuss exactly the form in which we will enable this, either a new job or something else. I don't know if anything anything else materialized. Patrick is not here, so I guess maybe I'll try to take this on Slack.
Okay, sounds good. So the basic thinking there that we were planning on is to introduce a test that just looks at whether the tag is set on the nodes, like if the GMS is set. And if they're set, then the test will continue. If they're not set, then it'll just skip the test. So that makes sure that things don't fail if the feature is not enabled, if the GMSA, if the DC is not set up, basically.
Yeah, that's perfectly reasonable.
Should be somewhat safe. I think that test PR is outstanding, so that'll come in pretty shortly. And with those 3 in place, GMSA should be ready.
So Deep, quick question. How does the test figure out, I'm assuming part of your test is also setting up the domain controller, right? And
yes.
Joining some of the nodes in the domain. So how does it know not to do that if we're running an environment that may or may not support it? Like, for example, if we're running in another Kubernetes Pro environment, right? Or will it always try to do that?
Yeah, so the way Jeremy set it up is he did it as an AKS extension. So
okay, got it.
It's part of Adelina's template that will refer to the extension and only trigger in the case of Azure AKS for now. And then if we want to enable it on, say, GCE, then we have to figure out how to set up the DC. But then as far as that E2E test is concerned, that'll just look at the tags and continue.
Yeah. No, I understood the test. I was just wondering about the infra part. Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay. So yeah, that was about GMSA. And the other item I had was, I wanted to ask if people already have experience building Docker images based on Windows through Prow, mainly for, again, around the CSI proxy. One feedback from Michelle was, from SIG Storage was, can we figure out a way to get building of Windows Docker images in Prow somehow? I asked in the Prow channel as well. They said one way around this could be to set up this federated Windows build cluster. I don't know the details around this. I was just curious if someone has any experience with setting
What
up.
kind of Windows images are these? Is it like just images that you're using for testing in Kubernetes or something else?
No. So this is going to be one of the production images. It's around a component called the CSI node driver registrar. It's an image that needs to be there as part of the.
Okay, so this is an image that we will build and ship as part of the master components for supporting CSI work.
Correct. It's kind of like the pause image, I thought, but wasn't sure how the pause image is generated.
I don't think that's being made in Prow right now.
Yeah,
I think it's just
the pause image, from what I know, is made in an Azure pipeline. That I guess Patrick on that side is managing. As to the question of building images for Windows in Prow, there's definitely nothing as such. However, Prow is flexible enough so we can write whatever workload we need in it. Basically, what Prow does is just look at whatever repo you tell it to look, or look for whatever command, whatever comment you want, and it will do the stuff that's defined in the config. Theoretically, it can be done. It's not that complicated. We do need a build node that Prow should connect to.
Right.
Some of the work there is not necessarily the same work. Like Claudio has this work where he's building the test images for the Windows testing.
Right.
And the workflow is pretty similar in the sense I don't think it's triggered by Prow at the moment, but the thing is that they're using a remote Windows node to run Docker build on. So there is a bunch of work that may relate to this in one way or another.
So I guess one thing I should note is, Deep, why don't you talk with Patrick when he's back and see if we can, so the way we've done it, right, we have the SIG Windows tools repo. If you can put there all the artifacts that are necessary to build that image, like your Docker files, or everything else that it needs, go ahead and do that there. So at least we have a centralized repo that's in the Kubernetes umbrella that has all the artifacts. And then if Patrick can incorporate that as part of the Azure pipeline, so he can build it for you and even host it in MCR, then that would simplify our workflows. That way we have a single repo that has all the things that Kubernetes will need for Windows.
Okay, sounds good. This will be slightly different, I think, because this is a CSI image. So, but yeah, we can work that out, discuss it.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thanks. And I'll also follow up with Adelina for some pointers to setting up a prob node if you have any.
Cool.
Awesome.
Great, thanks.
All right. Next item is the run as username. Claudio, great work on that. So it looks like we're almost ready to release, or at least push it in.
Yeah, the feature merged a few weeks ago, and the documentation actually merged this week or late last week. So the only part remaining is the E2E tests, which I've written. There's one small note though, which I am addressing to Ben and Yuju. In order for the tests to pass, you're gonna need to add a feature gate with Windows run as username. I've left a comment on the pull request there, which mentions this as well. Because run as username is an alpha feature, so that means it's disabled by default. So without that, the tests are gonna fail. But we should run those tests for 116.
Okay, makes sense. Who's the ultimate okay, you choose the ultimate approver for this, and Ben as well. All right, cool.
Yeah, a bit more down.
All right, then we skipped earlier 2 items on our agenda. One of it is the caching behavior for writing files in Windows. Who added that to our agenda today?
So yeah, this is thing I added. So basically, the problem I have is for testing our in-tray GCPD driver. We have some tests, very simple tests. So if we start one pod, and then that pod will create a file and write some data into the file, and then kill this pod. And after that, we create a second pod, which will use the same volume, the GCPD volume, and read the content from that pod. We see this test flaky sometimes, and when I investigate, I see even though the first part finished writing, we also kind of verify after it writes the content is correct, and then kill this part. But when the second part starts, the content of the file seems sometimes still empty. The file exists, but the content is just like empty. So that's why it failed to verify the content in the second file, in the second part. And I think the reason seems like the first part when he write, and somehow it's buffer, and it does not flush the buffer onto the disk yet. So when the second part starts, so it doesn't see any content. The Linux, we have the same exactly test. So far, it does not flaky. I think the writing the file, I tried 2 approaches. For Linux, it just use echo to direct the content to the file. For Windows, I use the same thing first, and then later I use the Windows API, like the set content. The PowerShell commands set content, but I think they all flaky. And I don't know, suppose when the file finish writing, it should, the file close should flash the content onto the disk. I don't know where, like, we can have a command to add to make sure it flash. And for Linux, even something wrong, like it's not flashed yet, but when the pod killed, we unmount the volume. Unmount, I think, is also automatically flash the buffer to the disk. But Windows, we seems don't have such thing, because Windows, we just create a symlink and remove symlink. There's no guarantee the buffer is flashed.
So even in the Windows case, I think it's still a GCPD volume, right? And when
Yes.
that gets like the dismount syscall, I know the file system flushes for sure. So that is pretty interesting. That,
I mean, even if it didn't flash deep, I mean, if it was cached at the file system. So when you go back to read it, you should read it back from the same spot. It's not like the file system changes from one pod to the other.
But when the first pod killed, the volume will detach, and when the second pod starts, it might like start on different node, and then it will attach and to a different node. It's not the same. And we don't use this mount. So if you see the mount Windows file, we just create a symlink. There is no dismount function called.
oh, maybe that needs to be added potentially, because
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like for mount Windows, if you see the mount Linux,
right.
so we have mount and mount, but there's no corresponding like in such thing in Windows. So I don't know. For Windows, we should maybe check again.
This is Dinesh. Can you file a GitHub issue and paste the link in the Slack? I'll pull in the storage folks from Windows, and I looked at the set content. There's no flush like explicit parameters, so I don't know exactly what's happening here. So I will be able to loop in the right folks if you have a GitHub issue.
Yeah.
Or
Okay.
if you can write an email as well, and I will paste my email ID and I can loop in the folks.
Yes. So my Slack is JINGXU97. So can you ping me so I can like
Sure.
reply you? Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Yes, that's it. So that's my kind of issue I want to bring it up.
Thank you, Jing. All right, and the last issue here is maintaining Kubernetes end-to-end test images. Adelina, did that come from you or Claudio?
No, that's me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I know we've been talking about trying to merge the Windows test images with the Linux ones, merging in the sense of managing them together to remove a lot of pain points that we have had, like tests being broken because people change only the entry Linux images and test cases. So because the way we are doing it now, we basically have very ad hoc a building and pushing process. So I talked to, even for Linux, so I talked to some of the folks from SIG testing and also Tim Hawking about this. And basically I wrote down a summary of what the different options, what we could do. And the options including like maybe building it using GCE, we can write up some script like what we talk about, a little bit similar to CSI discussion about building an image, that we can just create a VM and execute and build an image remotely and push it to GCR. So there are different options and different pros and cons. I just wanted everyone to take a look if you're interested. And maybe we can move forward and decide what to do.
All right, thank you. Yeah, we'll read this, and I'll make sure that Patrick also gets a chance to check this out as well. And hopefully everybody from our community gets, if you have any comments or suggestions, add them to this doc. Thank you.
I just have a question here. Claudio, how does this align with the work you've been doing in regards to the images?
I'm not sure. Yujo, does this include the pull requests from me that I've done regarding the Windows test images in Kubernetes?
Yeah, I don't think it conflicts with yours. It's just who is going to actually how to push and build. Who is going to do that, and in what environment should we do this? Mm-hmm. Because right now, even for Linux, you have to basically poke someone to build and manually push. And I know there have been discussions about automating the process, and there are also some technical issues about building this outside of GCE. So this is just something that I wanted to discuss. I actually want your input as well. Yeah.
I've also had actually to write a document regarding the Windows, the image building process. Recently, I've pasted another link in the chat. But I haven't read this document yet, so I'm not entirely sure what's in it. But the way I've been doing it, basically 2 nodes, one Linux and one Windows. And the Windows node is basically configured. The Windows node is configured with Docker remote management, which basically means I can build the Docker images from the Linux node. For example, this also has been included in the image util script from the Kubernetes repo. So basically, just executing make will also build for Windows as well. But
just one thing for me here. I'm assuming this is more not an infra discussion and actual mechanics discussion, as in who's gonna do what. I'll read the document, but what I want to say is if there's any discussion about automating this process, and in a pro job or something like that, and if there's no available bandwidth to cover it, we can lend a hand there in making or testing a proud job for this, because it's basically in the interest of the SIG to have this as fast as possible.
Yeah, that's good to know. I don't know if it's actually on the roadmap or anything. I've just heard about some people may have their cycle to work on this, but not including Windows. So I just wanted to make sure that whatever we decide to do, that would actually work for Windows as well. And yes, the doc is more about how to merge the 2 processes of using Linux and Windows images, because you can build, but then you still need credentials to push to GCR. You want to basically use the Docker manifest for the same image. Yeah. So take a look when you have time, and we can discuss on Slack, or you can set up a separate meeting if you want.
Okay, great, excellent. That's I just want to reiterate our disposition to do something and help in this regard if there's need. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I think that was the last item on our agenda, and we're pretty much out of time. Well, thank you all for attending. Appreciate your work on this as we're pushing for the 1.16 release, and we'll see you guys next week. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks. Bye.